Welcome to my story time. Get ready for quick wisdom of countless stories and explore. The Maze Runner by James Dashner. Imagine waking up inside a dark, rattling metal box, moving steadily upwards like an elevator with no visible controls. You don't remember how you got there. You don't remember where you came from. Worst of all, you don't even remember your own name. Your mind is a blank slate, wiped clean, with only fragments of fear and confusion swirling inside your head. And then clang, the box suddenly screeches to a halt. Light floods in, blinding you, making you recoil. You blink furiously, adjusting to the overwhelming brightness. And when your vision finally clears, you see dozens of boys peering down at you. They are of different ages, different sizes, some looking curious, others wary. Some stare at you with mild amusement, as if they've seen this scene play out before. "Welcome to the Glade, Greenie," one of them finally says. This is how The Maze Runner by James Dashner begins, throwing both the protagonist, Thomas, and the reader into the deep end of an unknown world. There's no soft introduction, no gentle explanation of what's going on. From the very first page, you are as lost, confused, and terrified as Thomas himself. The Glade, a society built from chaos. Thomas soon discovers that he has been placed in an enclosed area called the Glade, a massive, open field surrounded by towering stone walls. The people here, Gladers, are all boys just like him. They don't know why they are here or who put them in this place. The only thing they do know is that every month, a new boy arrives in the same way Thomas did, delivered in the box, with no memory of his past life. The Glade has its own system, its own hierarchy. It has rules, jobs, and responsibilities. Some boys are tasked with farming, some with building shelters, others with cooking. There are even medjacks, the closest thing to doctors, who treat injuries and illnesses. But the most dangerous, most important job of all? The runners. The Glade is surrounded by a massive maze, stretching endlessly in every direction. The runners are the boys who race out into it every day, mapping its shifting paths, searching desperately for a way out. But there's a problem. Every night, the walls of the maze change, rearranging themselves into a new, unpredictable pattern. And worse than that, at night the Grievers come out. The Grievers, monsters of metal and flesh. Thomas soon learns about the terrifying creatures lurking in the maze. The Grievers are part machine, part organic monstrosities, slithering, groaning, and deadly. They have metal arms, sharp mechanical claws, and stingers filled with a venom that does something worse than just killing you. If a Griever stings you, you don't die immediately. Instead, you go through something called the changing, a torturous process that brings back fragmented pieces of your lost memories. Some boys who survive the changing come back different, unstable. They whisper of terrible things, of a world outside that is broken and horrifying. And yet, despite all these dangers, the Gladers cling to one hope: that the maze, if solved, will lead them to freedom. Thomas, the boy who changed everything. From the moment Thomas arrives, something feels different. Unlike the others, he has an overwhelming feeling that he knows this place. There's something familiar about the maze, about the Glade, even about the fear and desperation he sees in the others' faces. He feels drawn to the maze, as if solving it is something he was meant to do. And then, something happens that has never happened before. The very next day, the box comes up again, but it's not supposed to. New arrivals only come once a month. But this time, it's not another boy. It's a girl, Teresa. She arrives unconscious, clutching a crumpled note in her hand. A single message that will change everything. Everything is going to change. The maze, a puzzle with no exit. The arrival of Teresa triggers a series of bizarre, terrifying events. The sky turns dark, as if the sun has disappeared. The supplies they rely on from the box stop coming. Worst of all, the walls of the Glade, which used to close every night to keep the Grievers out, suddenly stop moving. The Gladers are no longer protected. The Grievers can come in any time. Panic spreads like wildfire. Some boys lose hope, others turn against Thomas, believing he and Teresa have something to do with this disaster. But Thomas refuses to give in. Instead, he makes a bold decision, one that no one has ever dared to make. He runs into the maze at night, and he survives. By morning, everything changes. Thomas, along with Miho, the lead runner, discovers something new. The maze isn't random. It follows a pattern, and buried within that pattern is the key to escape. The truth behind the maze. Wicked is good? Through a combination of memory flashes and clues, Thomas pieces together the horrifying truth. The maze isn't just some cruel experiment. It's a test. An organization called Wicked World and Catastrophe, Killzone Experiment Department, is behind it all. They built the maze. They put the Gladers here. They erased their memories. But why? Because the world outside is no better. It's been ravaged by a deadly disease known as the Flare, a virus that slowly eats away at human sanity, turning people into savage, mindless creatures. Wicked is searching for a cure, and the Gladers, whether they like it or not, are part of that experiment. And when Thomas allows himself to be stung on purpose to recover more of his memories, he realizes the worst truth of all. They were never meant to escape. The final stand, a desperate escape. With the maze no longer safe, the Gladers have no choice but to fight. Armed with nothing but crude weapons and the will to survive, they make one last attempt to break free. The final battle against the Grievers is brutal, filled with loss and sacrifice. But against all odds, Thomas and a small group of survivors make it through the maze's final exit. And what they find is not the freedom they expected. Instead, they come face to face with wicked scientists, cold, calculating individuals who have been watching them suffer all along. But before they can understand what's happening, something even worse unfolds. A group of armed rebels bursts into the room, killing the scientists and rescuing the survivors. They tell the Gladers that Wicked is not what they claim to be, that the experiments aren't over, that the real nightmare is just beginning. Final thoughts, a maze with no end. The Maze Runner isn't just a dystopian novel. It's a gripping psychological thriller wrapped in layers of mystery, survival, and shocking twists. James Dashner masterfully builds a world that is equal parts terrifying and fascinating, making you question everything. It's Lord of the Flies meets The Hunger Games, but with a far more unsettling question. What if your suffering was just an experiment? The maze was only the first test. And for Thomas and his friends, the real challenge is still ahead. Stay tuned for more enlightening content. Head over to www.mybooksummary.com. Don't forget to subscribe and share the magic with friends. And let's grow together through the power of books and interesting stories.